Hello there, everybody. Welcome back to Star Wars Lads. We are here to talk about finally Ahsoka after all these weeks of waiting, months, years. We watched the trailer for this first time last May at Star Wars Celebration. It's finally here. We're here to talk about it. We're going to go into both episodes here in our typical spoiler review fashion. Let's dive into that review. Before we do so, make sure you're hitting that like button, you're subscribed to the channel, and you're commenting below, letting us know what you think of Ahsoka episodes 1 and 2. All right, so right off the bat, let's just talk about the plot. We're not going to individualize these episodes. I think they work very nicely as a package. Let's just talk in general about some of the things we enjoyed about both of these episodes overall. Sonic, what were some of the things that stuck out to you after watching these episodes for the first time?
That it looks really nice. I enjoyed Kenobi a lot, and I forgave a lot of its faults. But then you see something like this, and you're like, when it's only minor things sticking out to me with the level of scope and detail that they're working on, I'm like, like this is what I want from Star Wars live action. I think a great example of it is Lothal. Lothal is so well realized. I mean, like I didn't even do any like rewatches. I didn't even really watch any animated clips or anything. I was just like, as soon as I saw Lothal, I'm like, I'm feeling things from like 10 years ago. I'm like, wow, like I remember that scene. I remember like what that passenger used to look like under like the Imperial Dome and everything. It's great. I mean, it really does feel like Filoni lived here at one point, and he came in 2013 and he never departed, right? It really does feel like that because it's not like it's a sand planet, it's a water planet. It's not that very original trilogy or sometimes even prequel simplicity. It's a prairie land. It's got water that we don't really notice before this, right? Just seeing the full towers realized. Now we saw like the city of light, the almost ethereal spirit of it in the animated version. Here we were like in it, and I was like, wow, like the domes, like everything's almost feels like a floating city in some way. Just everyone feels so highly elevated and just at peace on this planet once more after the imperial corruption. The freaking freeway scene with the E-wings, I was like, it's like fan service for like a niche crowd brought into the mainstream. That's how it felt like. That was insane to see too. So the look and feel of it was perfection. I think the only thing that felt by the end of the last two episodes like not the greatest was the Corellia site. I like that we went back to Corellia after the Han Solo film, obviously, but I wish we got a little bit more into street level. This is obviously just like a reman yard, right? Like they're just taking apart ISD engines and all this stuff. New Republic, supposedly. The concept and everything around it was good. I just thought like sometimes when you saw the fight, it just felt like you're on a green screen. It just felt very flat in the background at times, and really only in a few scenes too. So honestly, for that to be like the low light of the graphics in these first two episodes, well done, Lucasfilm. And as a last note, I want to thank you guys, whoever originated the idea, would it be a team, whether it's like a company culture from back then brought back or something, but putting these at 6 p.m. PST, 9 p.m. EST helps everyone so much. And I feel like we get better into the discussions like this. So, very pleased, very happy. Thank you to whoever originated that idea because our sleep schedule is going to benefit from it.
Oh yeah, that is for sure. We're used to staying up all night to get these recordings done. But to piggyback off a lot of that, what you said, Sonic, I mean, I love this show so far. It's one thing that I really appreciate is it's maintained that faithful sense of visual design that Dave Filoni has really captured since his third live action Star Wars episode, which was The Jedi with Ahsoka. The first time when we get that really samurai feel, that very Eastern vibe from old Japanese samurai films. Ahsoka's fighting style in general, I really dug. And just the consistency in visuals. I was a little worried when we did a live stream last week and we were talking about the director's list and stuff. And I was a little worried when it was revealed that Dave Filoni didn't direct every episode because I've come to love his visual iconography so much in the way he directs live action Star Wars that I was hoping they would maintain at least a consistent visual flair to it. This show so far, having one Dave Filoni episode and one not, looks really good. And again, Lothal looks wonderful. Any type of callbacks to Rebels are appreciated. You know, we got characters from Rebels like Ryder Azadi and Jai Kell, who two references to Rebels right off the bat. Like this show was awesome, and I think overall the tone of this show so far is the thing I'm most excited about. Obi-Wan felt quite epic, but I felt like at times its visuals didn't support the epicness of its story. And here, for the first time, really, in maybe the Disney Plus era, maybe since like season two, episode one of The Mandalorian, when we get the crate dragon fight, this show feels epic in both visuals and storytelling. I love that, and I love that there's this like mystery element to the show. We all know who Thrawn is, right? And but for those of you who don't, or people watching for the first time who might not know anything about Thrawn, there's a wonderful sense of anticipation that's building to like what is his reveal going to be, which also makes it all the more hype for people like us who can't wait to see him. And also they need to nail it even more because like the more and more you hype Thrawn up, the more and more you have to actually make him as great as we've built him up in our head in both animation but mostly in novels. So I can't wait to see what they do there. But just a ton of really cool things dropped across these episodes. Opening scene was wonderful with Baylan and Shin. Also, let's talk about the characters in the show because we put out our speculation and predictions for what things we thought will happen throughout this show prior to getting any episodes. And a couple of things we talked about were Baylan and Shin, who have a major role right off the bat in the show, even though really the mystery of who they are or what they are or where they came from is still there and intact. Right off the bat, they have, I think, a bit more screen time than I expected them to have in the initial setup of the show. And then, of course, we have a ton for Hera, Sabine, and Ahsoka, and also way more Morgan Elsbeth than I thought we'd get, and confirmation that she is a Nightsister. Sanak, who were some of the characters out of all the main ones that stuck out to you, or talk a bit about how awesome it was to see Ryder Azadi or somebody like that too in the show.
Well, I'll quickly touch on that. I mean, yeah, it was nice to see Ryder. Obviously, he doesn't have his crazy hat or anything, so it took me a second to clock him. For characters, I do want to highlight some of the stuff that you said about the villains, but also like what our predictions were kind of leaning towards. We've been talking about this, doing videos and everything for a while now, so our thoughts have been starting to get very solidly concrete. And one of the things that we were still kind of discussing, not necessarily debating, was is Baylan like with Thrawn from the start, and he's just an agent that's left behind in the known galaxy, or is he someone who has been contacted, has worked with Ron maybe in the past or something, and now he's like, well, if I get back to him, the possibilities are endless. Like the power grab and everything. Like his whole moment there. It's probably the only real moment him and Shin share that's outside of like orders and like directives or like like thinking on something, I guess. Because I didn't think Morgan was anything standout in the Jedi. I thought that was a great episode, but it felt more like Filoni just purposefully sticking to a style, and he blended it into his world this time, right? Instead of just feeling like this is an almost like desolate, almost old like samurai film world just with aliens, right? This felt like, okay, let's combine everything I've learned from Clone Wars, Rebels, working on Avatar: The Last Airbender, just whatever other things I have in my repertoire over years and years. Favreau pushed it together. The style was all there. It was really great. It was really the villains that I was impressed by, because he felt like the villains that with the Inquisitors, everything. He's already tried these things out. He's tried out the politics and everything in Rebels, the early rebellion, the more fledgling heroism of the Ghost crew, right? Bringing it up to something more mature felt really nice, and he brought it to his villains this time instead of just feeling like individuals. It felt like almost like the bands that are connecting them are very complex. Baylan and Shin, like you said, there's so much depth and mystery there just from their moments shared. Then you see it Morgan, who's now a Nightsister, which makes it a lot more interesting, and we get to see some of her powers. And she has a strong leadership that I didn't expect. She feels real and richer, in some ways the most powerful of the group, which I didn't expect. But that really made the dynamic really good. The complexity, the villains, and the idea of it being almost like heir to the empire, when these more underground villainous groups start meeting together, when they make these new connections, how do they handle it? It feels the same way here. A lot of these groups, yeah, they have a same goal but very different reasons, but they know they have to work together in this almost pseudo community. So I think he excelled in taking those initial ideas that were a little bit more toned down and bringing them up. And I gotta praise every single lead actress here. I mean, obviously Rosario's been killing it. The 3D skeleton in the Leku makes it feel more like the Clone Wars now. It's incredible watching that. She's more assured. She's got the smirk. She's not crossing her arms as much. She's, kind of playing with her hands. She has some very interesting things to do with this iteration of the character. She's Ahsoka. She's at the same level Ashley Eckstein for me, never like slightly below. It feels on par now, finally. Hera, I was the most worried for her because I thought Mary Elizabeth Winstead, great actress, but is she gonna really take on Vanessa Marshall's powerful performance? Like her voice is so connected to that character. It took like 3 seconds, and Mary Elizabeth Winstead already like took it over for me. And I'm like, that's incredible, right? She's the one who's most similar to a Rebels version, but even then, like, still great development out of her, still her own take on it on the same level already to Vanessa Marshall. So shout out to her. Natasha killed it though as Sabine. That was very interesting. She's the most removed. I'm pretty sure when they talk about power, they're definitely saying she doesn't have the force. Hu Yang dropped a rough roast on her, unfortunately, but she's so disconnected from that rebel story that she feels like this is the first time she'll be like the outright lead to start off a story. And new fans who don't know anything about rebels barely know some Mando stuff, right? They're like, I want to get invested in this girl because she's like emerging into herself once more. You're following along with her. She is our eyes to the ground, and she delivered that. The punk rock music, the whole stuff on the highway, the fight was great too. I really liked it. Her tenacity, the Mando-ness of her, the art style, some of the imperial thinking and education and how that informs her. I felt like she touched on all those things, and she said in her interviews, I had rebels to study on, and that's like my bible now, right? And it feels very clear and evident, even though it's such a different take on the character already. It's just been vibes so far, and if it's going to be vibes, at least I hope the characters are interesting, and all of them, new and old, have been sensational.
Yeah, I completely agree. The way all of these new actors are able to encapsulate characters that we spent 4 or 5 years with right off the bat is was really impressive, and especially not just encapsulate what makes those characters, but take them to 5 years later, or even longer, 9 years later than we've seen Sabine or Ahsoka. Really, the way the ensemble feels tight and the chemistry feels there. It feels like there's history between these characters. It doesn't feel like we're seeing them meet for the first time or really get to know each other anew. And I think that's a really strong line that Dave Filoni had to cross with writing this show was he keeps it accessible for new audiences to where you go, okay, these characters have history, but there's also enough separation between their history and the story now that we don't even really know the recent history they're talking about. And that's going to soon unfold over the course of the series. So again, just another well-written plot point here. We've kind of missed, especially with Star Wars, the serialized nature of TV. I think Mandalorian mostly being episodic with a few serialized plot points, and then Andor doing a lot of mini arcs in between. It's gonna be interesting to see if Ahsoka opts for the episode 1 to episode 8 serialized. Every episode builds on each other type of storytelling. The money is here, the time, effort is here and ready for this type of epic storytelling. And I thought just the inclusion of all these characters, the way they're set up and the way their histories are kind of revealed, but also there's still an air of mystery for all of us who still know them quite well, was a really cool plot point. I also do want to mention Baylan because Ray Stevenson, oh my gosh, like he is so good. And it's so sad that he's passed because I would have loved to see this character continue on if he does actually live through this season. I love the power he brings to Baylan. Baylan has not only a mystery because the writing tells us he does, but there's just a way he acts, the way he commands Shin, the way he stands there so broad chested and firm, and just like he exudes power. And when you hear that he left the Jedi Order at the end of the Clone Wars, that one gives me hope that he actually is just a fallen Jedi and not the Sabaoth stand in. Maybe he will be still, but I still would love to see Sabaoth eventually. Man, I loved his performance here, and I think he's a standout, even though he doesn't really get his scenes that we've seen from the trailers here. Besides that first moment, other than that, he mostly does a lot of standing and talking, but every single time it's captivating. And then Morgan Elsbeth, she was kind of a plot point, right? She was a serviceable plot device for reintroducing THRAWN, I guess, to the audience in Mandalorian. And here she's actually given some weight, and I agree she commands the screen. And just the Nightsister reveal is also really cool. We had had a lot of speculation about that. I think one of our viewers brought that up in the past, and I thought that was a really cool idea, kind of calling back to the Legends version of Nightsister, like Tanel Kajo and Ogwyn of the Singing Mountain Tribe, Tamith Kai, those types of characters. It would be interesting to give even more depth to Dathomir now that we're getting Marin with that more traditional side of the Night Sisters that we've seen from the Clone Wars, the Ventress side, the Mother Talzin side, but also maybe there are these other clans that somebody like Morgan Elsbeth could have belonged to. And that's going to wrap it up for this stream and our review. Thanks so much for watching. And then we will have predictions and speculation on Fridays every single week, like we always do. Make sure you stay with the channel for a ton of other Star Wars content. We do have that bracket going on currently for the best animated Star Wars character. We have a Republic Commando live stream that we're going to get going again next week, but we will be back here every single week doing these live streams immediately post Ahsoka. So most likely they'll, depending on the episode length, most likely it's going to be probably around 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, make sure you come back with your questions next week, and we'll see you all next time.